Welcome to another edition of the Tom Green Podcast. As you guys know, our Lions, well, there have been better days in those spectrums, but we brought another Lion in, and we don't think he lies, but sometimes he might. We're not sure. His name is Jeff Lyons. He's back with us from our friends at 3 Point Stance Magazine. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thanks, Tom. I want to let you know that I'm doing this show in good posture, so I'm not slouching while we're talking.
well, that's good. It's always good to be in good posture, as my band director once told me. You got to sit up if you're going to play the trombone well. And
right. Well, here's the deal. Your clown of a head coach out in Detroit needs to worry more about winning than he does about what position reporters are taking questions in.
Oh, yes. I remember hearing about that, and I thought, oh, geez. Is the media getting to him as well?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing behind it is he's really got to realize he's not Bill Belichick, and he hasn't won enough to even put himself in that category, so he shouldn't be treating people like that. Yeah,
that's a very fair point. It's only year one here in Detroit, and perhaps losing does negative things to people that are unfortunate. But you're right. He has to clean up his act, and winning can help. But who knows with this year? So we'll hit an ad real quick before we get to our game previews here. If you play the games against the spread, whether it's for a weekend, a month, or all season long, you will win with the Fat Jack. Sign up now and take advantage of his Las Vegas guarantee. Follow his system and you will turn a profit, or he will fly you and a guest to Las Vegas for the Super Bowl. Call 1-800-298-1383 or go to fatjacksports.com. Tell Jack we sent you and get a special freebie. Tell me a little bit, Jeff, about the Fat Jack.
Fat Jack's been on fire, man. I mean, he's been making money for his clients the past few weeks. He had a little bit of a down week last week, but before that, I think Brandon and I were talking, he went on like a 20-6 type run that just, was just printing cash for everybody. So Jack has that guarantee about Vegas. He holds to it. Brandon says pretty much as long as he's known him, he's never had to pay out on that guarantee. But it's one of those things that he sometimes starts off hot. This year he started off a little slow, but he's well made up for it, and it's been a phenomenal run by him.
So if you're looking to cash, hit up the Fat Jack. You will cash. And I'm sure you'd seen my story a couple weeks ago. I just played a random lineup in NBA. I had seen off someone from Twitter. I won $300.
Nice.
Which was great because that helped me get a ticket to the Michigan State game.
You can't argue about that, right?
Exactly. And plus, it was good to go into enemy territory and good to go to enemy territory and give them our business.
Right.
So, with that being said, going to our Michigan preview. Michigan-Rutgers. If we lose, and I've told many people about this, if we lose this game, God help us, it's Rutgers.
Yeah, if you lose this game, you basically need to fire Jim Harbaugh immediately because it's a joke. I mean, this is the team that, like, everyone runs out of the building. No one's ever has to deal with being competitive against. This team's a joke, and they're just constantly spinning. I mean, what they should do is probably sooner or later go to Ohio State and just back the truck up and see what Shiano would take to come back.
Yeah, at this point, Rutgers has had one huge victory since going to the Big Ten, and that was way back in 2014, dare I say it, against our Michigan men. Well, my Michigan men, I should say. But that was when Michigan went 5-7, lost their way, fired Hoke, and now, thankfully, Harbaugh is here. But besides that one win, does Rutgers have any business staying in this conference?
Well, they But you need it because you need the body. So who are you going to replace it with?
And that's the thing. I thought to myself, maybe Cincinnati, but it would be a whole slew of things if we messed with the American Conference or how the conferences are now, since we've had so much changeover in the past 5 or 6 years. But Rutgers is seeming to be stuck in a. But as Ryan McGee says, they're in a rut. In a Rutgers.
Right. You know, the truth is, until Notre Dame's ready to make a jump to one of the conferences, I don't think you're going to see any more reshuffling right now. I think they kind of hold the key on this whole thing.
Yeah, with Notre Dame not joining a conference, it throws all the conferences into where they're at right now. And no, Notre Dame being undefeated right now, as you're happy about that, with them playing no championship game, they'll be sitting at 12-0, pretty much guaranteed a college football playoff spot if they're 12-0.
Right. Well, and the funny thing is, when you look at their schedule to start the year, you're like, man, that's a tough schedule. And now it's kind of become just a joke. But the nice thing is Syracuse is ranked 13th, and the Irish get them in 2 weeks. So they go beat Syracuse. Now you've got wins versus Michigan, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Stanford, probably USC soon, Pittsburgh, which is going to be the coastal champion. I mean, there's a lot of things to look at that give Notre Dame a good argument in, and it is. They're probably they're one of the 5 teams, I would say, that truly controls their fate. Everyone else is kind of subject to what happens, but Notre Dame's one of those teams. They went out, they're in, and if they don't get in, it'll be a major issue because technically when you look at their schedule, they're not scheduling any little sisters of the poor. These are ACC teams, Big Ten teams. I mean, they beat both Big Ten conference leaders right now. You know, or division leaders. This is a big, interesting question: how they could penalize Notre Dame and what would happen to the whole playoff thing if they did.
Yes, definitely. So an undefeated Notre Dame is pretty much a lock, and like you had said, 5 teams control their destiny: Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Michigan, and arguably Georgia.
Right.
With LSU losing, LSU is out unless sorcery happens.
Georgia and Alabama are going to play each other, so I'm guessing the committee's going to treat that as a play-in game. If Alabama wins, they're in. If Georgia wins, they're in. Whoever loses is out, which is kind of a nice luxury. Odds are Michigan State, Ohio State's going to get to treat themselves as a play-in game. You know, so that's going to help too. I mean, there's a lot of ways that this stacks up that basically you're going to get like mini or 16 type style playoffs in before you have to worry about it.
Right. The championship games so far, I mean, since the playoffs inception, the championship games have pretty much been de facto playoff games in themselves. Yeah.
And that's probably been a good thing because that kind of ends that whole, well, we need to extend it to 16 or 8 teams type of situation.
Right. And I'm more for of a 6-team playoff with the 5 champions plus the group of 5, but no more than 6. No more than yeah. I've originally, before the playoffs began, I actually thought 16 was the answer, but then I looked at it and I'm like, no, these guys are playing now up to 18 games. You got to give them a break at some point. Then I thought 8, and maybe 8 is the answer. Maybe 6 is the answer, but yes, these championship games have helped solidify the 4-team format at least.
Right.
So with that being said, back to our Michigan preview. As much of a preview as it is, I guess how's Saturday afternoon going to go? We both kind of know this answer, but tell me in your view how Saturday afternoon will go.
I mean, I would expect it to be a worse score than what Michigan-Penn State was. You got to expect that Michigan's going to try to hang 50-plus points on them, and if they let up anything more than a field goal, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, the last time they played Rutgers at High Point Solutions Stadium, they won 78-0, and if I'm not mistaken, your boy was announcing that game, Jason Benetti.
Yeah. You know, I haven't seen where he shot his picture from yet. He usually lets people know where he's playing based on like the picture that he's going to be shooting, before on Twitter. So I haven't seen where he's going to be yet.
This game will be on BTN. I believe I've heard at 3:30, so it will not be a Jason Benetti game, but in retrospect, I expect this to be a blowout as well. Not quite the 78-0 blowout like we saw 2 years ago, but I'm thinking like 55-7, and 7's being gracious to the Rutgers faithful. But as for the Michigan side, yes, we're saying we should blow this out, but don't come in too cocky at the start. Look at what Wisconsin did last week. Hornibrook threw 2 interceptions in the first half. Rutgers looked confident, but Wisconsin took care of business right after that.
Right. Well, I mean, let's be honest here. Wisconsin's not good. I hate to break this to everybody, but they've always had a quarterback issue. It's always going to be a quarterback issue until they can get a true stud out there. Yeah, they'll have a great running game, but their defense is going to have to be phenomenal in order to stop someone.
And last I checked, Don Brown is on the Michigan sidelines, not Wisconsin.
Right.
Even though Leonard's done a decent job, but like you'd said, quarterback issues, and the fact that it just seems to me that once they get to the big spot, like Big Ten championship, not yet, but perhaps CFP, they blow it.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's because they get a team who kind of gets them on skates, and that's what they freak out about. It's one of those situations, again, with them, is that if they can't run the ball, they're in a lot of trouble, so you got to hope that they can run the ball, and then they, at the same time, if they have issues running the ball and someone scores 14 points on them, they don't know how to fight back from it.
And that's,
they don't have the firepower to do so.
Right, the Achilles heel of the Wisconsin Badgers. Fall behind 14-0, they just keep running it, and unfortunately for them, the clock runs out.
Yeah, well, it's the Achilles heel of a lot of teams when you really look at it, too. Mm-hmm. Whether you want to hear it or not, it's the Achilles heel of Iowa. I mean, I would say that's a big problem for them. It's kind of like Penn State can't do anything if they can't throw the football. Ohio State's really, if you look at it, one-dimensional right now. They can't run the football to save them lives. That's why Purdue beat them. It's very interesting to see how there's a lot of teams in the Big Ten that have some area that they're really failing at, and other teams can exploit them, and that's why you're seeing this conference not with a bunch of runaway teams. You're kind of seeing everyone grouped together.
Mm-hmm. And our hope, at least my hope, is that Michigan State wins this week so that Michigan can beat the Big Ten East Division champions before having to go to Columbus to face Ohio State. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that would, but that doesn't take the pedal off the gas type of thing.
And I agree with you. Just like last year when I was at Michigan Ohio State. Yes, OSU had the division wrapped up, but they still had a lot to play for. They still wanted to go to the college football playoff despite them not going. They still had a lot of great aspirations, and I assume that Michigan has those same feelings.
Yeah, well, they have to. I mean, if they don't, you're in a lot of trouble.
We're too content. That's the thing. So, that being said, we're going to move on to our Detroit Lions preview because the Lions are playing this week.
Hi from Dicka's here on Thanksgiving Day.
Not quite.
We're giving thanks for or taking punishment from a team that is known as the Bears. The Bears.
And if you didn't know, Jeff, one of our former guests, Nick Ozen, who did the Michigan-Wisconsin preview, is actually a part of the Bears Brothers. So we actually got someone leaped up to another station from our program.
Oh, nice.
Because we had got, like I said, he got Nick on for the Michigan-Wisconsin preview, and apparently a week or so later he got on to the Bears Brothers. So you guys might have to talk together and form a little Bears show of some sort.
Yeah, I follow them. They're pretty interesting. I follow them on Twitter, so I can't argue with what they're doing. I mean, they obviously have a lot more free time than I do because they go to training camp and everything else where I just don't get that type of luxury right now.
Yeah, and even in my boat, I'll have like one day to go to training camp or one day to go somewhere. I make
Right.
full advantage of it, as you see on my Twitter, but it's usually like one day. I got one opportunity. I got to do it.
Right.
So with that being said, your Bears are 6-3. Your Bears are on top of the NFC North. Surprisingly, tell us about your Bears.
Well, when you really think about it, if you had asked me a year ago or in July or August, hey, the Bears are going to be 6-3 after 9 weeks, are you excited about it? I'd be running around, or I think, Tom, they're 5-3 actually.
Yeah, because they have had their bye week.
They're 5-3. They had their bye week. So if you told me they're going to be 5-3 halfway in the season, I'd be running around screaming, saying this is awesome. And because of the Khalil Mack trade early in the year, the expectations are totally changed, and they technically should be 7-1 if you really want to look at it. You could make an argument that they could go 8-0. I could even live with being 6-2 right now. But early on, the two teams you thought no matter what they were going to lose to might have been the Packers on the road to start off the season because they weren't going to be ready, and the Patriots. And, they were in all their games. I still don't understand how the hell they lost to the Dolphins because they looked tired. But more and more is coming out that that's the game Mac did hurt himself early on in. And that's why we kind of saw him struggled against New England. I think right now they're playing better football with Mac on the sidelines just because he's not 100%. The question is for them is when does he become 100%? Because that's going to be a really, really scary proposition for the next few games for those quarterbacks. And the Bears have a chance. They basically play Lions, Vikings, and Lions within a 12-day span, and they have a chance to easily get way on top in this division if they can roll through this part of the schedule.
Yeah, so unlike last year where we had Jeff on twice, we're having him on twice in 12 days, which that'll be interesting on that part. But yes, I do see where you'd say 6-2 would be the spot, and boy, am I still upset about them losing the Packers. Even though I'm a Lions fan, whenever a Packers loss is always amazing. But they had that game, and Rodgers.
Well, I really don't think they anticipated being up by that, and they just weren't ready to get or to coach through it, so to speak. I mean, when you start looking at this, you have to start asking a lot of questions, and I think they were just they're so freaked out that they got up this big. They didn't know how to handle it. And Fangio went to a cover 4 shell, which I'm still kind of upset about. And it worked the first series. I mean, the Packers took 8 minutes off the clock, but they only got 3 points. The problem was Fangio, I think, expected the Bears' offense to keep scoring, and they just didn't do it. And that's what got them in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're up 20-0. You got to score at least a touchdown. Or a field goal or something.
When you look at this, this is where the schedule's going to get interesting because you go Detroit, Minnesota, Detroit, the Giants, and then I think their toughest game left is they have the Rams at home in Chicago in December, which means it could be 2 degrees out for all we know. But then Packers at home, at San Francisco, at Minnesota. I mean, worst case scenario in that schedule, there should only be 3 more losses. That means you're 10-6 in the playoffs. But if they can kind of roll through the schedule, you might be looking at they go, 11-5, 12-4, and now they're going to probably win that division and totally change everything else going on.
Yeah, and then to start the year, and before the Mac trade, of course, nobody thought that the Bears were going to win the division. They had a first-year head coach, Matt Nagy. Who knows how that was going to go? Who knows how Trubisky was going to hold up? Who knows how the defense is going to be? But, of course, the Mac trade changes everything in that aspect. So tell me a little bit about how Trubisky has improved over the year.
Well, I mean, the first thing, you kind of notice is that he's using his legs a little bit more than before, and I think they're encouraging that out of him when he gets uncomfortable just to scramble and either get downfield to get that first down, or to turn around and really buy some time. The big thing, I think, the difference I'd say between like the Patriots game and this past Bills game is he wasn't running downfield as much as he's now more kind of sliding left and right and up in the pocket to get to wide receivers who are open. So I think he's kind of learned his lesson that he doesn't need to be that running back from the quarterback position. He's still, if you really want to do a true comparison, you can look at him versus Jared Goff, both in their second year, and he's well ahead of Goff's pace, which is just crazy. But the unfortunate thing for Mitch is he only had 12 starts in college. He started, I think, 12 games last year, right. And now he started 8 this year. But he's basically had a new offensive coordinator every single year, or a new offense to run. So this year's going to be kind of a luxury, but next year you expect him to take this giant leap because he's going to know how this offense works and what Matt Nagy wants as far as everything goes, with the reads and where the plays are. He's still every now and then not seeing a guy deep open downfield, but a lot of this too can be based off of where his progressions reads are going, and if he's getting pushed outside of the pocket opposite of that receiver, he's just not going to see him. No one is. So the fact is, I've always said, and no one can ever argue with me, I was born in 1980. Jay Cutler's by far the best quarterback I've ever seen play on the Bears. In fact, the old Bears in the 80s have said that if Jay Cutler was on their team, they would have won 3 or 4 Super Bowls. I think Mitch is going to exceed Jay Cutler and own Chicago. The biggest problem that you're running into is these clowns, and I use that term very positively compared to what I really want to call them. These clowns who see either the red zone or other stuff with Trubisky and talk about how he's missing throws or not really paying attention. Dude's got like a 65 or 69% completion rating. He's a 90-plus rated quarterback. I mean, this guy's better than anyone we've seen, and he's having probably the greatest quarterback we've seen or season in Chicago, and yet people are complaining about him.
I like that completion rating. 69,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
I don't think they fully understand what the heck's going on.
But yeah, and that's another thing with, dare I say, it's mentioned his name, Jameis Winston, is that the fact that he's had different offensive coordinators, it's really messed with his game. And this could be a factor with Trubisky, but Trubisky has really benefited and learned a lot quicker than Jameis, obviously.
No, I mean, well, Jameis knows had Cutter now for 3 years. You can't really, or 4 years. Remember, when he was with Lovey, Dirk Cutter was his OC. So that's what happened was they felt Dirk Cutter should be the head coach to kind of expand him. Last year, Dirk Cutter was the head coach, and he kept his offense, and I think he's still calling plays for this year too. The OC kind of there's like Chicago, where it's more of a, I guess, advice position versus an actual coaching position.
Okay.
I mean, the biggest thing that Mitch isn't as big of a bonehead, or even close to being as big of a bonehead as Winston.
You mean crabhead?
Yeah, whatever you want to call him. I mean, he's got so many comments you can make about him. I think that's a problem. The sad thing is, I never liked him to begin with, and I don't think he's going to make it. And I tell you, the interesting thing actually is that most of the scouts said they liked last year's quarterback class, the big names, better than they liked Mariota and Winston from the years before. So when you really or Goff, Wentz, Mariota, and Winston. So when you really step back and look at this, we're seeing that I put Trubisky and Mahomes, a lot of those, Watson, all those guys in front of Winston and Mariota. I put them in front of Wentz right now too, because I think Wentz has regressed from the injury. The biggest question is going to be how Jared Goff shakes out compared to these guys. And Goff is a little weird too, in that out of anything that happens, they openly admit Goff does a muddle huddle so that Sean McVay can see the defense and tell Goff what play to run and who to look for to be open. So it's not like Goff is entirely like commanding the offense after the play call. He's kind of still getting told what to do before that radio turns out turns off with 20 seconds left to go in the play clock.
Yeah, and McVay has really been a wizard the past 2 years. Kind of, in a way, as one of my buddies, Jordan Bennett, would say, the PJ Fleck of the NFL. Getting a team to a playoffs in the first year of his coaching career, but like you had said, Goff is being told what to do right now. He isn't so much the leader of the offense as Trubisky kind of has in Nagy's system.
Yeah, Trubisky has Nagy's system, and then he's the one calling the audibles and kind of making some checks and everything else that you're starting to see. The checks and audibles he's making are 100 times better than what he was doing early on in the year. And I think what I told everybody is if you were still complaining about Mitch and truly saying that he's having these bad games by week 12, we're in a lot of trouble. But I just don't see where that's going to happen anymore, especially against – what will be interesting for me, it won't be the Detroit game. It'll be the Vikings game to see how he does against that defense.
Right, because the Vikings defense last week scored like 22 points on one of my fantasy teams. Didn't play them in DraftKings because I don't like playing guys against Detroit in DraftKings unless it's Zeke. But the Vikings defense on one of my fantasy teams got me 22 points.
Nice.
So, and I also wish I had played Trubisky against Tampa that week.
Yeah, everyone does, don't they?
So that being said, shifting more to the Lions, last week was bad. In the words of Zoidberg, last week was bad, and you should feel bad.
Yeah, last week was bad. I mean, the big thing or the big question you got to start asking yourself right now, Tom, is has this team quit?
That's a very good question, and right now I say no, but I certainly see signs to where they have, and I think the next 3 weeks will really tell if that's the case. If we go worse than 2-1 those next 3 games, I really think this team has quit on this season, and perhaps we're going into tank mode for a top draft pick, perhaps to compete with Gruden's Armageddon of picks.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you take a look at this, you see them dump Golden Tate, who is arguably probably their second best player on that entire roster, and you start asking questions about where they're going with this. And the thing that scares me is Matt Patricia may think he knows more than everybody else and is trying to reshuffle that locker room, and ultimately it's going to be an epic fail for the Lions.
Yeah, this game, like I said, the next 3 weeks will really tell how the rest of the season will go. As Chicago, of course, a much better team than people thought they would be to start the year, facing them twice, and of course they facing a Carolina team that's offense is now firing on all cylinders. So this will be a real test for the team as well as the defense and Patricia. He's got to take control of that locker room, but he has to also know that you've hired assistants. They know some stuff too that maybe you don't, and you got to listen to them too. That was the problem with Millen for the years that he was there.
Yeah, well, again, your big thing, Tom, when you look at this is if they lose Sunday, I think it's almost a certainty they lose to the Panthers, just because that Panthers team is really, really mean and just kind of focused. So the question is, coming into Thanksgiving, I think they quit halfway into the Panthers game, and then coming into Thanksgiving, it just gets ugly early, which as a Bears fan, I'm not going to complain about. What will be interesting to see is how they play in Chicago on Sunday, because they're saying it's supposed to be overcast with a high of 40.
That sounds like typical November Chicago weather.
Yep.
even up north here in Bay City, it's getting cold now. They're predicting snow on Friday.
Oh wow.
And perhaps now that's actually something I love to see is snow games. Now, of course, Detroit had a game like that in 2013 that they lost to Philly, but snow games are fun because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, snow games can be fun.
And unless you're the 2009 Titans.
Well, yeah, it wasn't too fun for them.
A 59-0 loss to New England in the snow in October of 2009. So if it's a snow game, that'd be great. So let's see. How will around 3 o'clock Central Time on Sunday, how will Jeff C. Lyons be feeling?
I'm going to be feeling pretty good. I don't think Khalil Mack plays this week. I think probably the final score is going to be in the neighborhood of like 31-17 or something for the Bears. The big question will be is if they can get to Stafford. If they do, it's going to be a long, long game for Detroit because actually what's kind of scary is that Chicago Bears run defense has gotten really good. So I think the only way you can beat the Bears is to throw the football. But that's a lot of quick hitters. And I just don't know if you can consistently march the ball down the field on the Bears by doing that. So I would expect if Mac doesn't play, I think it'll be a closer game. If Mac does play and it means he's fully healthy, someone better pray that Stafford makes it out alive.
I was going to say, now we're not that bad, Jeff. Drew Stanton? Oh, my. Going back to those years? Wow.
Yeah.
With that being said, I'll leave it to Dennis Green to explain myself about the Bears.
Coach, 4 picks against Grossman and 2 fumbles. What do you see about the Bears? We shut them down that way.
No, we just the Bears are what we thought they were. What we thought they were. We played them in preseason. Who the hell takes a third game in the preseason like it's bullshit? Bullshit. We played them in the third game. Everybody played 3 quarters. The Bears are who we thought they were.
And I have a feeling that Patricia might be saying the exact same thing at around 3:30 on Sunday afternoon in Chicago. As far as the Mac deal, whether or not he plays, this is a prove me wrong game for my Lions. Do you want to play the rest of the season? Do you want to try to challenge this team for the North? Or do you want entertake mode? Compete with Gruden for a top pick? Perhaps get a great defensive guy or offensive lineman and see what goes on from there. As far as this goes, the Bears who we think they're going to be, Bears 27, Lions 20.
Ooh.
Closer game, but it'll be 27-10 at the end of the third quarter where Detroit will probably score some garbage time points.
Nice.
Of course, am I doing that just to impress the staff at 3PS, or am I doing it just because that's how I think? The world may never know. But Bears 27, Lions 20. With that being said, we enter the segment that we all have been waiting for on the Tom Green podcast. Of course, this part of the football podcast, rapid fire games. I'm sure Jeff has been excited to hear the slate for this week and get to picking. Are you?
I'm totally ready, man. And just so I make sure I know, we're just picking games straight up, no spread, right?
Correct. I mean, you can talk about the spread, that's fine, but the game picks are straight up.
All right, cool.
So last week we had a new leader in the rapid fire segment. Cody Klontz went 8-1 last week for an 888 winning percentage. So this is going to be tough for you, Jeff, to surpass
it. Man. You need to tell guests who get booked in front of me they always have their best week because I think that was the same thing last year.
Yeah, I think so. With I believe it was Aaron, yes, who had the 888 week. I think it was either 850 or 888. But he had his best week and he ended up winning the rapid fire segment. So tough for you, but it is possible. We will start in East Lansing. Michigan State, Ohio State.
I'm taking the upset. I got Michigan State.
You have Michigan State in that one. That's who I want to win. Wouldn't surprise me if Ohio State did pull this out, but it will be a showdown to the fourth quarter as just about the last four Ohio State
I'm telling you, the way that Ohio State gets beat is They're already one-dimensional, so if you stop the pass, you can throw the football on them, you will win the game. Michigan State's biggest problem is going to be throwing the football, but I think their defense is good enough to keep them in check that the offense can get rolling. And I go back to, I was at the Ohio State-Indiana game, and that's all kind of I kept hearing from the stands is, we can't run the freaking football, and our secondary's not as good as it used to be, so we have issues covering people. And Indiana hung with them till the fourth quarter. And then the next week you saw what Purdue could do because, again, Purdue kept them one-dimensional and made them throw the football, and they were able to knock the passes down. So I really like Michigan State in this. I mean, the biggest question, like I said again, is who's going to be quarterbacking for them, and are they going to be able to score points?
That's the thing. Yeah, I'll actually give me Michigan State in that one so that Michigan has the division before they go to Columbus. 31-28. Mississippi.
Oh, Tom.
What's that?
Tom, I'm going to call this on your podcast early right now.
Sure.
So you have this on tape. If Michigan beats Ohio State, Urban Meyer retires.
Bold prediction. Bold prediction. That would be that would definitely shock the college football nation with a retirement of Urban Meyer afterwards. Like, does he call like an illegal timeout and just leave, like the D3 guy does?
I think really what it is you could be looking at a 3-loss Ohio State team who's going to an average bowl at best, and on top of it, people probably don't want to keep Urban to keep digging around in his closet and just say it's time for you to go. So it might be some mutual agreed upon. Urban's kind of already set the standards, talking about what's going on, I guess, with the cysts in his brain or something, or whatever those things are. So I think he's kind of setting this up that if he doesn't win out, he's got his retirement, justification there.
That would be interesting to see. Hopefully, I guess in the minds of Michigan men, hopefully that happens. Going to the SEC, Mississippi State, Alabama.
This is Alabama and big. It's not even going to be... I take the line in this game. That's how big Alabama's going to be.
Yeah, I guess the only reason why this one went on the rapid-fire slate was because it became a ranked versus ranked game. As far as how good these teams are, Bama's it's Bama versus the rest of college football. Bama 52, Mississippi State 20, maybe even 14. Auburn and Georgia.
Georgia big in this one too, because Auburn can't run the football, which is Georgia's Achilles heel. Georgia finally gets to come back home. They've been on the road for a while, and I think they'll show out for it.
Sanford Stadium under the lights will be a great sight for Georgia fans. I see Georgia big in this one as well. Auburn, even though they beat Texas A&M, Auburn, they're not going to win the West this year, so I guess it's kind of the end of the road for them as far as that goes. Georgia 31, Auburn 10. Close line, or actually this is also ranked versus ranked. Game day will be there. Boston College and Clemson.
Clemson big. Boston College can't stop a Pee Wee football team's offense. Look at the Wake Forest tape. I mean, if they win games, it's because they win in shootouts versus decent opponents. Clemson's front four, you may be looking at 3 first-round draft picks on that defensive line. You got to like Clemson in this one big. I
like that it's at BC. This might help BC a bit, but Clemson's just too good. Clemson's number 2, and they're number 2 for a reason. Give me the Tigers 38-31. I think it gets close, but Clemson wins late. Even though I did say Clemson big. I went Clemson close. Close line here. Texas and Texas Tech.
Texas Tech. Love Texas. Well, have we heard is Texas Tech starting quarterback still out?
I have not heard either way.
I'm going to actually say, you know what? I think he's not going to play based on earlier this season he had a punctured lung, and then whatever happened during Worlds, he kind of screwed up his shoulder. I'm going to go. I'm going to switch it and just say I like Texas in this one. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think the showing that Texas Tech doesn't have their starter at quarterback is a big deal.
And we also see the big what is defense 12 because you're playing at Texas Tech. Defense doesn't exist there, as far as I'm aware. Give me I like Texas in this one. Oklahoma beat them. Texas should. Texas suffered a loss to West Virginia that they're going to be mad about. Texas 51, Texas Tech 41. Moving to the NFL, Jacksonville and Indy.
Oof. Can I buy another game to watch?
Can I buy a vowel, Pat?
Yeah, Jacksonville and Indy. I'm going to take Jacksonville in this. Indy's getting better, but I still think that Jacksonville team's better on defense. And they've been making a lot of comments about how pissed off they are on defense. So give me Jacksonville in this. It'll be a close game, but it's only because Jacksonville can't score points.
Here's my first contrarian pick, and not so fast to you. I'm going to take Indy in this one because it's at Lucas Oil Stadium. Jacksonville seems to have lost their way. They may have very well been a one-hit wonder, but we'll see about that. I still like their defense though, and I still have them on my fantasy team. It'll be something like 17-10 or 17-14 Indy.
Nice.
Washington and Tampa.
Washington big. We're gonna fire Dirk Cutter soon. Parade will continue. I mean, Washington's one of those that you have to say has defense will travel, and I mean their offense running the football. You can just see that they're going to wear that Tampa Bay team down.
Yeah, the only way Tampa can really win is in shootouts, like you had said with BC. Give me the Redskins in that one, 35-24. Atlanta and Cleveland.
Falcons big. I am not a big fan of Baker Mayfield. I've been on record on multiple shows on 3 Point Stance saying that I think Baker Mayfield is the next coming of Jay Cutler, and you can already see it in that his opposing teams are openly on tape saying if you give him enough time, he will throw you the football or give you the football via a fumble. I also think he's going to be one of those dudes who ends up being a coach killer in the sense that he already got rid of Hugh Jackson. You know, the next coach, they're trying to find a quarterback or a coach who can fit him. If Cleveland doesn't win with the next coach, they'll get rid of him quickly until they can find someone that can, you know, make use of Baker's talent. I think by the time he finally gets settled or has any chance in the NFL, it'll be too late. He's going to have been hit too many times, and you'll just see it wear on him.
Yeah, as much as you've complimented Cutler earlier in the show, you've kind of damned him now with that. But I like the Falcons in this one as well. Cleveland losing their head coach, even though that head coach went like 3-36-1, so the writing was on the wall. But they seem to have lost their way. Atlanta's looking decent, but at least Julio found the end zone. Give me Atlanta 35-20. And our last one on Monday night, a real barn burner. Giants in San Francisco.
Tom, why do these Monday night games suck so bad?
I know. That's the one thing about the rapid fire thing is close lines. they can be really good games or really bad ones.
I mean, I do like that Sunday right now they've been already flexing. I mean, they're flexing from Steelers. They're flexing from Steelers
Jags, I think, yeah.
To Bears Vikings, which is going to be a much better game. But, man, that game blows. I'm going to take San Francisco in this one. Actually, you know what? I'm backing off. I'm going to take the Giants in this one because I feel like this is going to be that game where Eli Manning just throws the ball 150 times directly to Odell Beckham to kind of make sure that everything's set.
The Giants have...
They have no other alternative, and this is the only way that he can keep himself alive.
The Giants have won 3 games since the famous Miami photo, and that Miami photo was taken 2 years ago now. Tells you how awful that team is. I like the Nick Mullins show, especially against Oakland's defense, and with the Giants' defense depleted as it was with the trades. Give me the Nick Mullins show, 31-20.
Yep.
So that being said, that is our rapid fire segment for this time around. And of course, as always, I will ask to Jeff, do you have anything else to add to this wonderful Tom Green podcast?
Bear down. And actually, you know what, Tom? I want to have a quick discussion with you. I think this is fair.
Sure.
Okay. I'm not going to argue that Michigan's gotten a lot better over the course of the year. But do you think that they deserve to be the number 4 ranked team in the country? And based on watching the game versus Notre Dame, do you think the final score was 24-17, or did you think it was a lot worse?
So, okay, from what I've seen right now, if you look at Michigan, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, those 4 teams, it would be hard to say that Michigan right now is better than Georgia. If you put those 2 on the field, it would be a very close game. With experience, I would have to say Georgia is slightly better, but they didn't play each other, and we'll see how that turns out in the SEC championship game. As far as the Notre Dame game, that seemed a lot worse than it actually was. I like the 24-17 final at least, to where it wasn't that bad, but you could see that Michigan had some problems, and with Shea Patterson having to learn the pro-style offense, he finally got to learn that within the next few weeks afterwards. So I do think that was really more of a 31-14 final more than it was a 24-17 final as far as that game goes.
Yeah, I have a bunch of people who are huge Michigan, including grads out here, and they all said the Notre Dame game felt like it was like 50-17. Like they said they never felt like they were in it. The other interesting thing too is they said, well, we'd love another shot at the Irish because we think we could beat them. And I had to keep explaining to them, that's cool, but the dude who has a 50% completion rate now is sitting on the bench, and Notre Dame has a real quarterback. So I think both teams have gotten better. I just don't know if I was going to say Michigan's got to play like what you mentioned, Georgia, Oklahoma, or Oklahoma, I would take Georgia and Oklahoma over Michigan in any of those games.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and that's what brings it back to us. But that was just my final piece. I had to get a little Irish love into you besides telling you bear down.
Of course, and I'm sure the Irishmen have to say they have to give me their 2 cents, just like Ben Belden did in the Michigan Notre Dame preview. So, thanks again, Jeff. He is Jeff Lyons, and this has been another wonderful edition of the Tom Green Podcast.